Ryzen 7000 CPUs have recently hit store shelves, and they don't appear to be selling well. Along with that, prospects are afraid of high platform costs, as some leaks suggest B650 motherboards to be also quite expensive. And we've also got Intel coming out swinging with their Raptor Lake CPUs. Let's discuss that in this video. Hey, if you enjoy content like this, drop a like, make sure to subscribe, and smash that bell so you never miss another video. Hey, what is going on guys? Danny here, welcome back to the channel, and I hope you've all been doing well. If I sound a little possessed or demonic, it's because I've been sick these past few days and I've been kind of losing my voice here. So please bear with me. There's been a lot going on lately when it comes to the PC hardware industry because Nvidia is coming out with new GPUs, AMD has come out with new CPUs and will have new GPUs in the near future, and Intel is also doing the same. But with how much negative press there's been, whether it's bad pricing or poor performance, it feels like things really aren't as exciting as they should be. I wanted to make this video a while ago, but I ended up getting a bit sidetracked because of the whole Intel Arc GPU release, and if you want to check that video out, I'll have a link to it in the video description. For this video, the main topic I wanted to start off with was how Ryzen 7000 CPUs are not selling that well. When AMD had initially announced these CPUs back in August, I had immediately said that this new series is going to be a tough sell and caught a lot of flack for it. Many people believed these CPUs would be selling like hotcakes, and well, that just didn't happen. If you go to newegg.com and look up the Ryzen 9 7950X, you can find it in stock readily available. Hop on over to amazon.com and it's the same thing. You can find other parts like the 7700X, 7600X in stock. Here in Canada, we have a very well-known computer parts store known as Memory Express, and they are also showing CPUs like the 7950X, 7900X in stock. Interestingly, if you look at stock levels for the 7600X, the availability there is much higher, and that's because this CPU is the least desirable out of the stock, and we'll talk about that more in just a moment. Over at Overclockers UK, we can see that the 7700X and 7950X are listed as in stock. Tech Epiphany on Twitter, who posts regular updates of CPU sales from Mindfactory in Germany, showed on October 5th a breakdown of CPUs sold. You can see an overwhelming amount of AM4 CPUs being sold, followed by LGA 1700, which is Alder Lake, then followed by AM5. And if you go further down below and take a look at the SKU breakdown, you can see low figures for the Ryzen 7000 series relative to parts like the 5000 series and Intel's 12th gen. Therefore, it seems like that from many regions around the world, Ryzen 7000 isn't selling well. Quite a stark difference from what happened with the 5000 series, where the CPUs sold out day one everywhere, and as soon as stock was getting replenished, they were selling out immediately. Supply for the 5000 series didn't become stable until I'd say mid-2021. Sure, there's probably more supply available than last time, but it's blatantly obvious that the demand just isn't there. I've gone over plenty of reasons as to why this is happening in some of my previous videos, but just to recap, gaming performance wasn't anything spectacular. They more or less tied with Intel's Alder Lake and their own 5800X 3D. When it comes to productivity performance, only the 7950X and 7900X are worth getting. The 95C operating temp has also deterred a lot of buyers, even though that is more of a non-issue. It's just that this is the first time we've seen something like this implemented on the desktop CPU side of things, and a lot of people just don't understand the reasoning behind it, so they're just unsure. Then the biggest factor is pricing, and not just for the CPUs, but for the overall platform costs. With X670 and X670E motherboards having significantly higher price tags when compared to last-gen X570 models, it's deterring a lot of buyers away. The cheapest X670 on Newegg that I could find is this X670-P from Asus. The last-gen X570 counterpart has hovered around $150 US just for comparison. The Zen 3 Ryzen 5000 was just a straight-up drop-in upgrade for a lot of users, so that obviously helped boost sales there because that meant you didn't have to get a new motherboard or RAM. Since we're on that subject, Zen 4 only supports DDR5, and it's also quite costly compared to really good Samsung B-Die DDR4 kits. Sure, prices are going down, and you can find DDR5 32GB kits for around $140, but keep in mind it's straight up trash tier memory that you'll find yourself upgrading 2 or 3 years down the road from. because by then there will be DDR5 kits available which will be way faster and much cheaper. So that's why the whole future-proofing argument there is flawed. A lot of reviewers I noticed had tested Ryzen 7000 with the faster DDR5 6000 kit that AMD had provided in the review packages, which is fine for a review, but that kind of RAM right now isn't feasible for most buyers. Also, 6000 mega transfers to DDR5 is like what 2666 was to DDR4. The good stuff is going to come when we start seeing kits that are rated for 7200 mega transfers at like CL30. And that is why you see CPUs like the Ryzen 5 7600X sitting on store shelves. When you have to pay almost just as much for the CPU when it comes to RAM and a motherboard, it's not a very good value, especially compared to something like a 12600KF, which can be paired with a cheaper DDR4 and motherboards. So say you have a budget of, let's say, $1,500. For the Ryzen 5 7600 system, you're going to have less money to spend on your GPU than you would if you went with, say, a Ryzen 5 5600 or 12600K, and that will have the biggest impact on your gaming performance. The 7600X may end up with, say, a 3060 or 3060 Ti, whereas the R5 5600 system can have something like an RX 6800, because you end up spending more on a graphics card as opposed to with the Ryzen 7000 system. You're spending more money that needs to be allocated towards an expensive motherboard and DDR5. But X670 and X670E are clearly geared towards enthusiasts and, content creators, workstation users who need all that I/O, PCIe lanes, NVMe slots, and more. For gamers, B650 is what they should go for, as AMD said that those motherboards should start from $125, which is a lot more economical. But unfortunately, that may not actually be the case. Well, at least for now that is. Recently, there was a post over at Video Cards who are sourcing a Twitter account by the name of Golden Mango, and they shared a picture of what appears to be a table with MSI B650 motherboards and pricing. I've actually never heard of this account before, and obviously, you want to take all this stuff with a grain of salt, but one thing I wanted to point out was that this account has a history of posting info surrounding MSI products, so who knows, this could be some kind of insider. Taking a look at their table, and more specifically the pricing, and the cheapest option appears to be the B650M-A Wi-Fi at $189 with the rest of them in the 200s, and the most expensive being the Carbon Wi-Fi at $329, which is quite steep. Who knows how accurate this is, but what if it turns out that most of the good B650 boards will be in the 200s, and for anything less than that, all you're going to get is a very minimal bare bones board for $150, then that's also going to be contributing to poor sales of Ryzen 7000. I honestly feel like B650 could have been a good platform for them to retain DDR4. We can't also forget about external factors, with inflation and cost of living going up everywhere. People are choosing to spend less and cut costs wherever they can. The demand for PC parts has also fallen dramatically. At AMD's recent earnings call for Q3, they showed how they missed their target by a considerable margin and reported a drop in consumer products. 2 years ago, people were locked in their homes. People were interested in upgrading or building a new PC, whether that was for gaming or for work purposes. But, now that's not the case anymore. The other thing I wanted to point out was that most people do not even need Zen 4. I feel like this is a topic that gets overlooked and doesn't get as much attention, but I feel like hardware has far superseded the needs of software. I'll probably make a whole separate video about this, but in short, if you're using a Zen 3 CPU, you're still fine. Zen 3 is still wicked fast, and keep in mind when reviewers are doing CPU reviews, they're using a 3090 Ti or whatever the fastest gaming GPU is on the market, and test their games at 1080p with modest settings, which for a CPU comparison test is fine. That's really how you should do things, just so you can see the differences. But you can't really call that realistic, can you? Someone with an RTX 3070 or RX 6800 would be doing just fine with an R5 5600X. There's really no point for them to upgrade. And unless you're a niche esports gamer playing on a 360Hz monitor at 1080p low settings, then you've really got nothing to be worried about. Moving on, and I wanted to briefly talk about Intel's announcement of their 13th generation Raptor Lake CPUs. These were announced at the same event Intel announced their ARC gaming GPUs. Intel announced 6 models, but technically it was 3 because each one also had an F variant, which stands for no iGPU, and they're slightly discounted. But what's interesting is that everyone was talking about Intel was going to raise their prices. Intel themselves are on record saying this, but if you take a look at it, it seems like only the i5s have received a considerable bump in price, probably because they have the lowest margin there. But compared to last gen, it seems like prices have stayed the same, which is great. Clock speeds have been bumped up significantly. The CPUs come with more E-cores, which should help improve multi-threading performance, and they also have increased total cache. The downside is that power consumption has increased, though it seems like that's basically been the case with every new hardware that's been coming out. Nonetheless, considering the competition Intel has to deal with, I think this lineup looks adequate. I also wanted to point out that you can pair these CPUs with cheaper DDR4 kits, cheaper B650 or Z690 boards, and you've got yourself a configuration that'll be just as fast, if not faster than Zen 4. Also, the i7 13700K and i5 13600K are going to absolutely embarrass AMD. There will be no reason at all for anyone to go out and buy a 7600X or 7700X when you can go with Intel, get the same kind of gaming performance, way better multi-core performance, and it's cheaper. 13900K is a bit of a different story because it's in that same price range as the 7900X and 7950X, and as I had explained, buyers in that segment will have different needs apart from gaming, so AMD still looks just as appealing there. But I feel like a lot of people were just waiting for reviews for Raptor Lake to drop, and for the most part, I expect them to be positive. If Zen 4 was given positive reviews by the majority of tech press, then I wouldn't expect a different result, which will also be another contributing factor to poor Zen 4 sales. Changes will have to be made. I feel like Zen 4 CPUs, maybe not all of them, but the 7600X and 7700X at the very least need a significant price drop. They weren't selling that well to begin with, and now that's about to become a lot more worse. At least $50 to make them look a bit more attractive, and there's a good chance that might end up happening. Just last week, people in the US were reporting that Micro Center was giving away free DDR5 kits with a purchase of a R7 or R9 CPU from the 7000 series. Which that by itself is already a huge deal considering that's like $150 for even like a trash tier kit. But it's not something you would expect to see so early in a launch cycle. So I feel like that was AMD testing the water with a retail partner to see how they could boost sales, and I expect more things like that to happen in the near future.
If you guys found this video to be informative and entertaining, then leave a like. Let me know your thoughts and comments down below. Be sure to check out the video description for cool links and ways to support the channel, such as using my Amazon affiliate link. And if you're interested in seeing more content like this, then consider subscribing, I'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for watching, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.